Welcome to the Awakening Women Show. I'm your host, Leanne Oaten, a former counselor with a background in counseling psychology. I'm a mentor for high-achieving, ambitious women with over 13 years in the mental health and empowerment space. I've guided hundreds of women and have influenced over 100,000 through my platforms, podcast, and other courses, programs, and mentorship. I'm also the creator of the Relationship Clarity program, formerly known as End the Cycle, which you will hear me mention a lot of times as we go through the episodes. This program is to help women break free from destructive relationship cycles and come to clarity and power about their next step. This show is for the woman who knows her relationship struggles go deeper than the usual conflict. You know there's something more going on, but you can't quite nail it down or pinpoint what that is. You'll find clarity here, empowerment, truth, and validation. Clarity on whether your relationship can be healed or whether it's time to reclaim your life and move forward. What started as me sharing my own experiences quickly became a movement because the truth is, so many ambitious, successful women are stuck in confusing and draining relationship dynamics while trying to rise in every other area of their life, career, motherhood. This is you, you're not alone, and you don't have to keep living this way. Inside this podcast, you'll hear some of my most downloaded episodes, plus fresh content designed to help you break patterns, reclaim your wholeness, and decide once and for all if this relationship is where you belong. I'm so glad you found this space. Let's dive in. Welcome to this edition of the Awakening Women podcast. I'm your host, Leanne Oaten, and in this episode, we're talking about emotional freedom and how it is that you can experience that no matter what it is you're experiencing in your life and relationship today. This has been a really big part of the work that I've been doing with women for the last 13 years because my focus as a former counselor and coach has been helping women to master their own emotional world. And a very large part of the work that I've done with women that I believe is behind why they shift is because it is emotionally focused. Now, when you are working on things in your life that are not working, the last place, especially high-achieving, success-driven women, the last place that we tend to look is our emotions, is our emotional world, how we're feeling day-to-day, moment-to-moment. Hence why we end up becoming high-achieving women. So I'm going to get into how it is that women can achieve emotional freedom no matter what their circumstances are, and ways that you can create shifts within your emotional reality through doing your own inner work. But before I do that, I want to invite you to the Emotional Freedom Bootcamp that I have coming up. It's a 3-day mini bootcamp, December 8th to 10th. This is 3 days of video training and workshop material where you are going to get a lesson from me around this and then integration homework. It's a mini taster of the type of coaching that I do inside of the collective. If you do not carry on and go into the collective, totally fine, because you're still going to get 3 days that will definitely shift you into a new direction. Because with new awareness comes change, right? We have to have the awareness first. So we're going to talk about why it is that women continue to stay stuck in relationships they know that they should leave. They know the relationships are not good for them. But no matter how successful, how smart that they are, they can't seem to loosen the grip of the toxic cycle. We're going to talk in day 1 about why that is and how you can know what's really at the root of the ongoing cycles and if emotional addiction is what is happening for you. Because it's not true for every single person. And also there are varying degrees from which a woman can become emotionally addicted. There are different levels. And this is why some women are able to leave and some, no matter what they do, they just can't seem to break free. And we're going to talk about that. And then the second day, we're going to get into what is the pathway for you if this is something that you are dealing with. And then in day 3, we're going to talk about the opportunity for using this as the catalyst to your greatest transformation, your greatest growth and evolution. And then I'm going to invite you and open the doors for a short time to come into the Collective, which is my mentorship program, where we will go much deeper into this to help you break your emotionally addictive relationship patterns. To get your spot, head to the link in the show notes of this episode and sign up. So let's talk about emotional freedom and what this means from my perspective. And this really does come from my own healing work, but also the work that I have done with women over the years. And what I have seen with women and how quickly they shift when we start doing this emotionally focused work. So as a therapist, one of the most interesting modalities or forms of therapy that I really fell in love with was emotionally focused therapy. I also really loved solution focused therapy. And so those two were kind of the premise of the type of therapy that I practiced, along with holistic methods. So I would always bring in the physical, the self-care, spiritual, and it was a holistic framework that I used and a holistic methodology that I used in my counseling practice. And then when I left my counseling practice, moved online, moved more into the coaching space, working with women all over the world, I still have that framework and that knowledge base there. But I don't do therapy anymore. I do coaching and mentoring, but it is still very much emotionally based while it's not therapy. It's not processing trauma and going back into the past and going into past life regressions and all this other stuff. I don't necessarily think there is a lot of value in that. That is my personal opinion. I had some somewhat negative experiences working with some people around this many years ago, around taking you back into things that happened in your childhood, and had some very bad reactions to that. And so I don't think that we need to be doing that. We can work with the present moment now. We can work with what's happening now. We can be trauma informed. I am very much trauma informed. I'm not a trauma specialist, and I'm not here to treat trauma, although what it is that I do does end up helping women who are experiencing symptoms of trauma, which we all have. I don't think any of us walk out of this life without some form, some more than others. Emotional freedom is the foundation. It's not the end goal. It's the foundation for life. So for women who've been in emotionally addictive relationships, freedom is more than leaving the partner, the problematic partner. It's a long-term healing journey that requires how they experience attachment, desire, and self-worth. We think that it's love, but it's not. And it shows up in many different dynamics, family dynamics, in career, in stress, in money decisions, and in self-sabotaging patterns. And so the core premise here is that women might mistake the fact that if I could just get out of this relationship and leave, then it will all be okay. Everything will be well. Then I'll be fine. But without doing this work, that is about getting to the root of the emotional pattern that becomes the addiction. For some women, as I said, not all, you're going to find out if you fall into this category when you join the Emotional Freedom Mini Bootcamp. When they think that they're going to leave and it's all going to be fine. But then what happens is that other patterns show up on the other side. Especially when it comes to new relationships, new dating partners, they'll find themselves just in the same situation with a different face, different person, but eventually they might think that it's a different person, that this person doesn't seem anything like their ex. But as time goes on, they're going to realize that the patterns and the same types of things are coming up. This is how we know we have unfinished material, unfinished business. What we are really wanting, right, when we go to a therapist, is we are wanting some kind of emotional relief. And so sometimes that can happen when we're venting. It can kind of feel okay for a little while when you're venting and just, ruminating and processing, over processing. You might think you're actually doing some kind of work, but it's not really. It gives you the illusion that you're doing the work, because you're seeking the quick relief versus the long-term self-mastery. Many women feel like there's an instant emotional shift when they first engage in my work. This is true because I help them get right to the root and shift it so that they can see how they've been seeing things is faulty. that it's not the way it is, and that they can change how they feel in an instant with their attention, shifting their identity, shifting their mindsets, shifting their emotional energy and frame of reference, and looking to other ways for evidence rather than just their emotions, because we tend to allow our emotions to drive the bus and then we end up in the ditch. So while emotions are a big part of who we are and we need to be tapped into those and have self-mastery over those, over that part of ourselves, we don't want to allow it to control every decision. And this is especially true when it comes to unhealthy relationship dynamics, because women are often led by their emotion instead of the logic that's saying, get the hell out of here. What are you doing? Oh, but I feel bad, but I love him, but nostalgia, but. Then they allow the feelings to dictate what they do, and that can lead you to danger. If you allow guilt to control you, you're going to end up in the ditch. So we cannot use our emotions for everything. We have to get into logic, especially when we are prone to these kinds of relationship dynamics. And I know that most women are just wanting some kind of clarity, some kind of release, just give me some kind of release, because I'm doing all the things and nothing's working. They know something is really wrong. They just don't know what it is, and they tend to internalize that and then feel like shit about themselves. And that is not what we want. We don't want you to feel worse about yourself. We want to get you into a more empowered place ASAP so that you can begin the actual work that you need to be doing. You cannot do that work when you're feeling sorry for yourself, sitting in a guilt shitstorm, and you're not able to pull yourself up the emotional scale. You can't get anywhere from there. And so when women have come into my world, they begin to notice very quickly that they can feel joy again. They start to feel excitement and a newfound sense of energy for their lives, even if their circumstances have not changed. Even if they are still in the relationship, they're doing the work to release the emotional grip. They're getting their own lives. They're breaking patterns. They're detaching emotionally, and they're healing because of that. And it's not easy work. It is not easy work, whether it's women I've worked with in groups, women that are in my collective, my private clients. It's never easy work because we're rewiring old patterns. Well, you are. I am not. You are. I can't stand that when I hear coaches online saying, I'm going to rewire you. You rewire you. You seek the guidance of trusted mentorship with someone who has built a reputation around their work and around their body of work. And then you put some trust in them. That's how it works. And then you follow their lead, even if it's uncomfortable. You still check in and obviously, make sure what it is that you're being guided to is the right thing. But there is an element when you don't know where to go next that you do have to trust someone else with, obviously with a grain of salt, but you have to trust someone that has been where you are, who has led other people through the transformation that you want to go through, who has the expertise and the educational background to lead you there safely and hopefully quickly. So emotional freedom isn't just about detaching from a person. It's learning how to self-soothe and self-regulate and maintain boundaries without having to chase, fix, and overgive. And then over time, as you're rewiring these patterns, then over time, this rewiring prevents you from boarding the same addictive patterns in new relationships or other areas of life, because we need to really be able to see where we go wrong in order to change it and do something different. If you don't know where you're going wrong, how are you going to change it? If you don't know exactly what the problem is and where it is that you lose yourself, where it is you keep staying in the same circular loops over and over and over again, where is it that continues? And then I'm kind of just giving away some of my what I do with clients and women here, but this is what we do. This is what I do, is I help you pinpoint where exactly in that are you getting tripped up, because it's different for everyone. Here's your pattern. Here's where you're getting stuck. Here's where we need to shift it right here. And when you shift it right there, it shifts the entire pattern. And if you can't see that and you don't know, then it's not your fault. You don't know. You don't know what you don't know. But it is your job to get the support and guidance that you need. So it's not about never feeling badly. It's not about never feeling pain or painful, harder emotions. Not at all. In fact, emotional freedom is about allowing yourself to feel what's real, to feel what your truth is. But as I said, it's also not allowing the emotion to drive the bus. It's really important that we do this work for our health because our emotional state affects our biology. It affects our body. Women are at risk. We're at risk of having some pretty serious health issues if we continue to suppress our emotions. We continue to stay in emotionally volatile situations. We keep re-engaging in addictive patterns because that's creating stress and cortisol in the body. And we're running off of adrenaline and stress. And when we're in an addictive pattern, we are basically just running away from something underneath all of that, what it is that we're doing. And when we have addictions to emotional patterns, like within toxic relationships, as I said, this is for the most part, I would say not every case, there's exceptions. For the most part, this is at the root of why women can't leave, no matter how many people are saying you need to leave, no matter how bad it gets, no matter how much you might not even like him, you still can't leave. That's a pretty good tip off that that's what's going on. And so this gets missed. This is not talked about enough. There's very little information on this, and there's very little direct mentorship around this. Therapists miss this, and you can just spend years and years going in the same patterns because you're not dealing with the root cause. I'm all about let's find the actual root, rip it out at the root. And then we can actually do the healing work when we can pinpoint what is causing the problem. So what we do is we want to get you into a place of feeling that emotional relief, that first shift, which is what I'm going to give you a taste of inside of the 3-day mini bootcamp. You're going to experience what I mean by that. To start feeling and reclaiming joy, hope, and clarity, understanding and breaking the addictive pattern. And then how do you achieve long-term emotional mastery and self-sourced power? And then how do you build this into a full life transformation beyond just romantic relationships? Because this goes much deeper. It's actually, here's a secret, it's not about him. It's not about him. He's not it. Even though he feels like he's not. He's just a man. He's just a man. And when you really realize that and you're like, what am I doing? Like, why am I letting my whole life go up in flames for this man? Well, because I have a problem and I need to fix me because he's not going to fix himself. And here I am still here trying to fix him when he has given me nothing but evidence that he's not growing. He's not changing. So I need to look in the mirror and say, it's me. I'm the problem. And this is good news because now that means I can do something about it. If I take responsibility for my own part in this dynamic, I can change me. I am 100% in charge of changing me. And so what happens here is that when we can actually see this for what it is, then the hard work underneath, sometimes not hard, but uncomfortable, I guess, when we can recognize that what we have been doing is being driven by an addictive pattern, then we have to get really honest with ourselves. And then stuff starts to come up that was buried underneath all of that. And that's what we've been avoiding. And typically an emotional addiction doesn't happen in a vacuum. It doesn't happen in isolation. Typically there is one or more addictive patternings. So one thing that I have noticed is that oftentimes women who are in these types of toxic relationship patterns, they will have eating disorder or body dysmorphia or emotional eating, binge eating, or vacillating between binge eating and restricting, and exercise obsession and body obsession. And then the state of their relationship in a given moment, or what's going on in the cycle, will determine how they're treating their bodies. So they might binge eat when they're feeling rejected or hurt, or they might starve themselves when they feel abandoned. So there is often an overlap and link with that. That is something that I've noticed is a commonality. I'm not saying that's true for every person, but I have witnessed that. And this just goes to show that typically there's more than one. Or I've worked with women who are in these types of relationships and they're workaholics. They're high achievers. They do a lot of work. They're working on their business, or they run a company or a medical practice. Or it could be alcohol, using alcohol as a way to numb, distract, and avoid, and just kind of like experience some of that relief through alcohol, but really it's just making it worse. There could be shopping. There could be just the addiction to trying to fix their partner. It becomes all they can think about. It becomes an obsession. And there's these cravings and obsessions and compulsions. And the relationship becomes everything. That is not normal. It isn't. Maybe it starts to maybe feel normal to women who have been in this, but that's not normal for your relationship to become the entire universe of your life. Like, this man is he's all you think about. The relationship's all you think about. It's like the reason for everything that you do. You can't focus on anything else. And we have to recognize when we ourselves are unwell. And I don't mean this in a shaming way or a bad way. This is a conversation or a real tough conversation reality I had to have with myself many times. So this is not to shame anyone, but to be able to see your own unwellness and then go, okay, well, I'm responsible for me, and it's time that I dedicate myself to healing me. And when you make that decision, everything changes just from the decision. You don't need to know the how. You don't need to know the what and the who and the when. You just need to make a decision that this is changing starting today. This is changing now. I am doing something about this. This year, this coming 2026 is not going to be like this year or the years past. You can make that decision. We're heading toward the end of November. So it's that feeling of like, okay, fresh new year is around the corner. What is it that you want to leave behind? What are you done with? And where do you want to be in the next year? What do you want to look back on in the end of 2026 and say, wow, this year was a success. I did everything I set out to do. And that's a really beautiful thing, to look back on your year and realize that you did what you set out to do. And so we're going to be talking more about that inside of the Emotional Freedom Bootcamp. So make sure you get your spot. This is the last live event, live session I'm doing until who knows when in the new year. I don't know. And I'm going to be opening up the collective for a short window of time, so you can jump in to get that mentorship through the holiday season and beyond. While you're going through family dynamics or things going on over the holidays, you can pop in, get coaching, talk to the other women in the chat. We're doing a December holiday healing focus. So we're going to be really diving into how do you navigate this season coming up if you have family estrangement or you have relationship conflicts and you're wondering, how the heck do I make it through this without ripping my hair out? You also might be going through a separation, or you're estranged from your spouse while you're living together, or you may be just newly separated and you're trying to navigate this and you just want a lifeline. You want other women who get you. Then that is what we do inside of the collective. And so we are going to be opening up on the 28th. So in a few short days, we'll be opening up the collective enrollment. So that's what I have for you in this episode. I hope that it has given you something to contemplate. And if you notice yourself resisting the idea that you're in this relationship that you can't leave and that it's actually an addiction, I invite you to just open to the possibility, be willing to see. Just be willing to see that there's more going on here than what you can see. It's like the iceberg theory, right? Most of the iceberg is underwater. You only see just a tip of it. It's only the very tip, the saying, the tip of the iceberg, right? That's where that comes from. But this is exactly what it is. You're dealing with the tip of the iceberg, trying to overfunction and micromanage him and get him to therapy and get him to stop doing this and that and setting boundaries and telling him off and all these things. You're trying to micromanage this from this level of like, it's just not going to happen because the 90% of the problem is underwater. It's happening so deep within that, you're trying to put out fires and they're fires that you didn't even light, and you're running around trying to put them out, and you wonder like, why do I feel this way? Why am I feeling crazy? I'm trying to do all the things. I'm running this and that show and the business and the career and the kids and the house and everything. And I'm trying to put out fires and manage a grown man. And so I'm wondering I'm focused on like, what's wrong with him instead of going, what's wrong with me? Why am I doing this? This is ridiculous, right? And that's what I invite women to do, is to just become disgusted by it and get disgusted by what you've allowed and what you've tolerated. Because once you allow yourself to get there, then you start seeing things a whole lot differently when you can start telling yourself the truth. All right, bye for now.